Islam, Muslims. First, I give praise to my Father God Allah and honors to his holy prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give honor to the forerunner of the prophet, Brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and I would like to extend honors to man. Before I proceed, I'd like to take a reading from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and it will be parts of chapter 47 and chapter 48. Chapter 47, instructions 16 and 17. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. And part of chapter 40. In these modern days, there came a forerunner of Jesus, who was divinely prepared by the great God Allah, and his name is Marcus Garvey, who did teach and warn the nations of the earth to prepare to meet the coming prophet, who is to bring the true and divine creed of Islam, and his name is Noble Drew Ali, who was prepared and sent to this earth by Allah to teach the old-time religion and the everlasting gospel to the sons of men, that every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree, and return to their own and be one with their Father God Allah. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a lawfully chartered and incorporated organization. Any subordinate temple that desires to receive a charter, the Prophet has them to issue to every state throughout the United States, etc., that the world may hear and know the truth, that among the descendants of Africa there is still much wisdom to be learned in these days for the redemption of the sons of men under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We, as a clean and pure nation, descended from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. Therefore, we are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations, as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. Islam. And a few questions from the one-on-one questionnaire. What does the lower self breed? Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him? Where are you going, Satan? What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self? I am going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour. Has he finished his task of devouring of the person into whom Jesus was reincarnated, Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror? This main topic is about State Street. The Prophet there's an oral quote that is said to be stated by the Prophet where he mentions State Street, and I was prompted to look into 1792 to see some of the events of 1792, and I found some very interesting things, and I would like to go over those now. These first couple I'll mention, I think they all have a connection, but I really didn't go into a lot of detail about these first two bullet points, but the last one is one of the main topics. It's October 12th, 1792. The first Columbus Day celebration in the United States is held in New York City, 300 years after his arrival in the New World. On October 13th, foundation of Washington, D.C., the cornerstone of the United States executive mansion, known as the White House after 1818, is laid. So the cornerstone of the White House is laid October 13th, 1792. And also in 1792, the State Street Corporation is founded in Boston, Massachusetts. Massachusetts. I've always had trouble with that word. It's like a tongue twister. The State Street Corporation is founded. It is founded on June 25th, 1792. In the beginning, it was also referred to as Union Bank. Union. It makes me think of number 6 of chapter 48. We as a clean and pure nation, descended from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate or marry into union the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. Let's continue. As we stated, it's founded June 25th, 1792. I had to that was in another part when I was looking up State Street, so I had to find out the exact date or day that it was founded, and I found that it was June 25th, 1792. And I didn't see anything else in that particular site that I was researching, so I did a search of June 25th, 1792 to see what came up, because, you know, as we were taught that law governs all events, to see what would be, you know, a contributing factor to this founding of the State Street Corporation and the Union, quote unquote, Union Bank. And this is what came up, and all this ties together, so I will begin reading. It says, Barbadian-born Prince Hall spent the first 35 years of his life enslaved. 21 of those years he was owned by William Hall, who brought him to Boston in 1765. Prince Hall was finally manumitted in 1770. He quickly became a leader of the small African American community in the Boston area, a position that was enhanced by his fighting with the Patriots at the Battle of Bunker Hill in 1775. However, Hall is best known as the founder of the black, quote unquote, black Masonic Lodge in the United States. On March 6, 1775, Hall and 14 other free blacks, quote unquote blacks, were inducted into the Order of Free and Accepted Masons by British soldiers stationed near Boston. With the departure of the British less than 2 weeks later, Hall and the other quote-unquote black members were permitted to continue meeting, and on July 3rd, 1775, formed the Provisional African Lodge Number 1, the first quote-unquote black Masonic Lodge in the United States. And before I continue, being, as we've spoken on before, Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, the British inducted by the British. After the Revolution, Hall, as Grand Master of the Lodge, petitioned for and received a permanent charter which was authorized in April 1787. Hall also became a Methodist minister in Cambridge. On June 25th, 1792, Hall delivered the speech, reprinted below, at a Charlestown meeting hall, where he sets out the principles that would guide the Black Masons for the next 2 centuries, the quote-unquote Black Masons. So on June 25th, 1792, Hall delivered the speech where he sets out the principles that would guide the Black Masons for the next 2 centuries. So June 25th, 1792, State Street Corporation, founded June 25th, 1792, also known as Union Bank. Hall's early years are unclear. Historian Charles H. Wesley theorized that by age 11, Hall was enslaved or in service to Boston tanner William Hall, and by 1770 was a free, literate man and had been always accounted as a free man. It was through William Hall that Prince learned how to process and dress leather. And also, as it says up here, the speech reprinted below. I got this from a site that had the speech. I didn't copy the speech. It was quite long. But as it says, I don't see it as necessary, but if you look up Prince Hall in June 25th, 1792 speech, if you're so interested in, reading that or seeing that, that's how you would find it. But it says, as it says, was enslaved or in service to Boston tanner William Hall, and it was through William Hall that Prince learned how to process and dress leather. So let's go back. As it says, he was manumitted. Prince Hall was manumitted in 1770. So manumit, to send, and it says literally to send from one's hand. So it's like if I send, or if one is sent from one's hand, it's like I guided you off and like sent you off in a direction. That's what makes me think of. And it said he was literate, so like he was trained in and taught by the one who enslaved him and had control over his thinking, understanding, reasoning, and willing. Or was given control. And I broke the word down. So manumit, man broken down, hand, and manumitted, mitted is also can be broken down to mission. So sending abroad as an agent. Also to exchange, remove. It could be body of persons sent to a foreign land on commercial or political business. That for which one is sent or commissioned. So he was manumitted in 1770, sent forth from the hand of one who had taught him to tan leather. Tan. Makes me think of color also, to color. And most of us of a certain age or older have heard tan your hide, and that popped up, to tan someone's hide in a figurative sense of beat, flog, or thrash. And also convert animal skin into leather by soaking in a liquid containing tannic acid or by the use of other chemicals. And another one, beat someone repeatedly as a punishment. So he was taught to tan leather and leather. Tanned or otherwise dressed hide of or skin of an animal. And sadomasochistic popped up, and that is like, from what I was gathering, it is of a couple different Europeans' names, and the gist of it that I gathered was that sadomasochistic is ones who enjoy pain, gain joy from inflicting pain. Or torture on another. Okay, so as we said, State Street Corporation, founded June 25th, 1792. On June 25th, 1792, Prince Hall, founder of the quote-unquote Black Masonic Lodge in the United States, sets out the principles that would guide the quote-unquote Black Masons for the next 2 centuries. This is a oral quote. It stated, it said, the Holy Prophet said, "If I don't take Islam across State Street, what do you think I am teaching you for?" And across, from one side to the other of a place, area, etc. And also what stuck out to me, used to express position or orientation. Okay, so let's speak a little bit about what State Street is and how the quote-unquote banking system is working in this particular system in society. It says State Street Corporation is an American global financial services and bank holding company quartered at 1 Congress Street in Boston, with operations worldwide. It is the second oldest continually operating United States bank. Its predecessor, Union Bank, was founded in 1792. State Street is ranked 14th on the list of largest banks in the United States by assets. It is one of the largest asset management companies in the world, with $4.7 trillion under management and $46.6 trillion under custody and administration in 2024. It is the second largest custodian bank in the world, providing security services, and it is considered a systemically important bank by the Financial Stability Board, along with BlackRock and Vanguard. State Street is considered to be one of the big 3 index fund managers that dominate retail investing. Okay, so it says it's financial services and bank holding company. So financial. Some of the definitions relating to finance, the finances or financial situation of an organization or individual, the management of large amounts of money, especially by governments or large companies, finances, the monetary resources and affairs of a country, organization, or person. So that also, what came to mind is, when the prophet stated that the prophet said, "Moors, you are just plain rich," and that is a paraphrase. That just came to mind. but the monetary resources and affairs of a country, organization, or person. So financial services and bank holding company. It says State Street is considered to be one of the big three index fund managers that dominate retail investing. So retail, some of the definitions that stood out to me is cut off, pare, clip, reduce. And that's a verb, and also as a noun. Cut back, cut off, a selling by the piece. So one's invested in cutting off, clipping, reducing, to cut back, cut off, or to sell by the piece. It says it's, hold on. Yeah. And it said it's it is the second largest custodian bank in the world, providing security services. So, and we went over this before, but I'll go over some of the definitions of security. State or condition of being safe from danger or harm. Freedom from care or anxiety. Something which secures, that which makes safe. It makes me think of, for whom. Safety of a state. United States person. The legal sense of property and bonds. Makes me think of bondage, bonds, mental slavery. Document held by a creditor as evidence of debt or property, and proof of right to payment. So I will proceed to try to bring this all together. Okay, the company is named after State Street in Boston, which was known as the Great Street to the Sea in the 18th century as Boston became a flourishing maritime capital. The company's logo formerly included a clipper ship to reflect the maritime industry in Boston during this time. And that makes me think of, how a lot of the Moors say, this is maritime law, and they're, and ones are considered out to sea. Things that I've learned in the past, from different teachers and also different reading. So, Great Street by the sea. Great Street to the sea. Sorry, like there. So it's like to get one's out to sea. It's the Great Street to the sea. And we'll see how in a second. And also it's tied with Prince Hall being quote unquote the first black Masonic lodge that set forth the principles that would quote unquote guide the I want to read it correctly, so I don't want to. Let me see. sets out the principles that would guide the Black Masons, quote unquote Black Masons, for the next 2 centuries. State Street Bank and Trust Company, also known as State Street Global Services, is the security services division of State Street that provides asset owners and managers with security services, e.g. custody, corporate actions, fund accounting, pricing and valuation, and administration, fund accounting and administration, financial reporting, tax compliance, and legal services. Global Services handles assets from many classes, including stocks, derivatives, exchange traded funds, fixed income assets, private equity, and real estate. Global Services also provides outsourcing for operations activities and handles $10.2 trillion of middle office assets. It makes me think of middleman being a middleman. But just for an example, Global Services handles assets from many classes, including stocks, derivatives, some of the etymological definitions of derivative, having the property of drawing off or away, taken or having proceeded from another or others. So, this one stands out to me, having the property of drawing off or away. And drawing off or away from what we will discuss. Assets, as it says, State Street Global Services is the security services division of State Street that provides asset owners and managers with security services. Assets, sufficient estate. Any property that theoretically can be converted to ready money. And that makes me think of, how we went over the money, the heads that are on the money and the things that are behind them, and the giving up of the birthrights and all the other schemes that are behind the fiat money that we've spoken on in previous videos. And as it's set up here, State Street Corporation is an American global financial services and bank holding company. A bank holding company is a company that controls one or more banks, but does not necessarily engage in banking itself. Okay, so a bank holding company is a company that controls one or more banks, right? So what is a bank? A bank is a financial institution that accepts deposits from the public and creates a demand deposit while simultaneously making loans, mobilizing saver surplus to deficit spenders. Lending activities can be directly performed by the bank and indirectly through capital markets. So it says a bank is a financial institution that accepts deposit place in the hands of another as a pledge for a contract. lay aside, put down. Lay down. So it's like makes me think of, giving up the birthrights, or the governing of ourselves, because of here it says deposit. So D is away from, and position, away from position. Some of the etymological definitions of position are status, standing, social rank, official station. So away from your status, away from your standing, away from your social rank, away from your official station. So the State Street Corporation is, as it said, one who accepts. They depend on one banks, or ones that accept being away from their official positions, or their standing, or their rank, or status, or their official station, creating a demand for one's being away from their status, standing, social rank. So giving up of the birthright, mental slavery. And it was in part set forth and contributed to by the speech of the Prince Hall Black Masons, and the principles that were set forth for the Black Masons for the next 2 centuries, as it's stated. And it also appears said something about custodian. It is the second largest custodian bank in the world. A custodian bank, or simply custodian, is a specialized financial institution responsible for providing security services. It provides post-trade services. That makes me think of, if you're an official of your nation, like the Moorish Science Temple of America, we are part and parcel of the government, and to lead and guide our people as Americans. But they provide post-trade services. Like, no, you do that, let me govern, you do something else. That's what that makes me think of. It says a custodian bank, or simply custodian, is a specialized financial institution responsible for providing security services. It provides post-trade services and solutions for asset owners, e.g. sovereign wealth funds, central banks, insurance companies, asset managers, banks, and broker-dealers. It is not engaged in traditional commercial or consumer retail/retail banking like lending. So it's there for post-trade services, to And it makes me think of, that's why the prophet said, take your place in the affairs of men, because we've been in a quote unquote banking system that is based on trading of the post, and being that it's, as we spoke on, this is an extension of quote unquote black Masons setting forth principles for the next 2 centuries, and man cannot be Negro, black, or colored, quote, etc. It's, yeah, it makes me think of chapter 47. A systemically important, where am I at? Okay, yeah. So it's not, it's a like traditional, like what you would think of as a bank. That is not what it does. It says it's post trade services, so it's basically makes me think of, and I can't remember the whole thing, so this is a paraphrase, but like, why your bread is eaten by another, you know. It says a systemically important financial institution, or sci-fi. A systemically important financial institution is a bank, insurance company, or other financial institution whose failure might trigger a financial crisis. They are colloquially referred to as too big to fail. And those of a certain age or older, you'll remember the talks of too big to fail when the quote-unquote banks were bailed out. So that makes me see that in a totally different light. It was basically the saving of this system, the saving of mental slavery, the post-trading, all the things that are included in the State Street Union, quote-unquote Union Bank, and the District of Columbia, and the corporate status. And that makes me think of earlier where it said it provides corporate actions, so it makes me think of corporeal, or keeping one's in a treadmill of mental slavery, and also makes me think of the presentation where we discussed the social constructionism, and one's, some knowingly and others unknowingly, going about in ways that try to keep it alive, and as it says, a systemically important financial institution. It says relating to a system, especially as opposed to a particular part. This one stood out to me as well, from a more metaphorical, or not metaphorical, but just a different understanding, is system entering a plant via the roots or shoots and passing through the tissues. So I can see that on a scientific level as applicable as well. There are many things behind this, and I can see I seen some of the pattern of the things that were being expressed, and showing how this is a system based on quote unquote black mentality, or that makes me think of up here also says, along with, what did I want to read this? It is the second largest custodian bank in the world, providing security services, and it is considered a systemically important bank by the Financial Stability Board. Along with BlackRock and Vanguard, State Street is considered to be one of the big three index fund managers that dominate retail investing. BlackRock, that makes me think of black, according to science, means death. And rock, understanding is the rock which man builds himself on. So having a black understanding, or a seeing the world from the eyes of what was set forth when the principles were set out. It says set out the principles that would guide the quote unquote black Masons for the next 2 centuries. So I will continue to study. I felt that needed to be discussed and put forth. As always, I continue to study, and have a great rest of your day. Islam Morse. Peace.